Affairs don't begin in the bedroom. They begin in childhood, in the part of you that buried her truth just to be loved, the part that's now screaming to be seen. I'm Alex Croxford, and this is the Deeper Love podcast, where we name the shame, face the guilt, and help you find your way back to yourself. So let's begin. Today, I am very excited to introduce Georgie Collinson, Australia's leading anxiety therapist and author of the Anxiety Reset Method and Master Your Relationship Anxiety. We talk about high-functioning anxiety, how it quietly becomes self-betrayal in love, why affairs are often a nervous system survival move, and how to build real safety inside your body and inside your relationship. If you've ever asked, what is wrong with me and why did I do that? This one will land. Georgie, it's so good to have you on my podcast now after me having been on yours so recently. So thank you so much for joining us today.
I'm so excited, Alex. We've got so much to talk about.
I got so much. So, Georgie, I'd love for you to just start off and share with everybody. Obviously, you are one of Australia's leading anxiety therapists, and I would love for you to share with my audience what it was that took you into that arena. How did you get to where you are today?
Well, like many people who specialize in something, it was my life journey that took me here and my personal experience with anxiety. And I tell this story in different ways every time, but today let's start with I was always I used the anxiety to my advantage in my earlier years, and it helped me in high school to be a high achiever and to make sure that I was well perceived and well liked by others, and it helped me climb the social ranks and things like that in my earlier life. And I didn't see it as a problem. It was something that helped me, achieve things. But when I was 19 years old, my parents divorced, but it wasn't really a mutual thing. It was my dad actually left my mum for a much younger woman. And that was devastating. It was like, I never thought that that would happen to my family. Even though looking back, there were clues. And it was something that just turned my world upside down. And so suddenly anxiety was impacting me in a whole new way. There was this sense of bracing for the next bomb to go off, because this scary thing had happened that had shattered the foundations of safety, security. I all of a sudden, even though I was 19, I was still very much still a kid, figuring out life and the world. And I suddenly didn't have either of my parents available to me. My mum was in her grief, obviously, and going through so much. And my dad I was really mad at him. And he was sort of figuring his stuff out too. And so it was a lot. And what then happened is this part of me was looking for what else could go wrong and when is the next thing going to go wrong. And because I didn't really have a way to cope with that at that point in my life, I found ways through controlling what I ate, controlling even more so how I was perceived by others. Like, it just spun out into a whole new level of perfectionism and people pleasing and just being really hard on myself as well. It led me to study naturopathy and natural medicine and really understand more about what I could do to optimize my physical well-being. I kind of thought if I ate all the perfect foods, maybe then I'll have a happier mind on the inside and life will feel easier to manage outside. That didn't quite happen, but I did learn a lot that is still very useful and important. But it was only when I delved into our subconscious mind and all the things that we don't know about ourselves, that I was really able to create a bigger shift in my life and for the women that I work with. So I went on to work with women. I always lit up when it came to helping women with anxiety. And that became the Anxiety Reset Method, which is the title of my first book. And things have kind of flowed from there.
Wow, I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. And I think that it's so wild how similar our stories were, being the perfectionist and being the one in control and trying to make everything so perfect and neat, and deep down really avoiding, certainly for me, and I'm sure that this is potentially for you too, is just avoiding what I was truly feeling. Like, I didn't even recognize that there was anxiety in me until I had to really do a deep dive, until everything kind of collapsed down. So would you say that the anxiety that you're experiencing at that time, like, was it showing up in your relationships? And if so, like, how was it showing up in your relationships?
Such a good question. I would say in relationships, anxiety would show up, and I didn't know this for a long time because the thing is, straight after my parents divorced, not long after, I entered a relationship with a safe, lovely man who was very secure. And that meant that I felt quite safe, although I would have moments of anxiety. I remember if I saw a photo of him with another girl on Facebook, because those were the days when it would turn up on Facebook. I would think to myself, oh, like, what if something has happened? And I'd have these sort of thoughts that maybe he was cheating on me, even though I absolutely had faith in that man, that he wouldn't do that to me. I very deliberately chose a safe option because of how hurt I'd been by my father's affairs. And so that was something, it was there, but it was kind of hidden. And later down the track, when I wasn't in that relationship anymore, and we'll talk about how that happened, that's when I really discovered just how much there was anxiety in relationships for me. And in fact, it was like I'd mastered anxiety in so many areas of life, like when it came to my day-to-day life, work, friendships, that it got to a point where only recently I was able to kind of work out what was going on for me in that regard. And I had to it was like my kryptonite. Relationships was always the place where suddenly I could be brought to my knees with anxiety. Like suddenly I could go from being really confident in myself, really liking who I am, and 2 weeks into dating someone, just be so a shell of myself, full of self-doubt, wondering, why aren't they texting me consistently, or what have I done? What's wrong with me? And yeah, that's been a really big journey, actually, getting on top of that. But it really helps when we learn what safe love really is, how to recognize it, and understanding that it's actually available to us, like choosing a safe partner, not a different kind of safe to the first one I mentioned. The safe partner that you can grow with is a huge game changer for our nervous system in anxiety.
My God, yeah, and I really feel you, and I think there's two things that happens quite a lot. I think there is a myth that our safety as a woman is only defined by a man creating that safety for us. And I think that it is really important to find a man that can exactly what you said, like hold us and be a safe space for that growth. But also at the same time, remembering that the safety that we feel, a large percentage of it comes from our own internal safety. It's like us being able to create our own safety inside of us. And I feel like this is the work that you're doing, really. Like, I'd love for you to define a little bit around, like, what does working on your anxiety through the anxiety reset method, like, what does that give someone? Like, what would that take from someone, and to especially somebody who's potentially had an affair or cheated on their relation on a partner? Because of course anxiety, fear, which is what anxiety is a huge part of of going through something like that. So much fear of the unknown, fear of the future, fear of who am I? Am I a bad person? What? Who am I now? Who is somebody that could do this? And so I'd love for you to share, like, what is it that helps somebody in that situation heal through the anxiety they're experiencing?
Yeah, so really we're going to the root of what this is all about. If you're experiencing anxiety, or you're feeling just uncomfortable within yourself, or this lack of confidence, there's always a reason for it, even though we like to say, oh, anxiety's just come out of the blue, or it's there for no reason, or this is so annoying, I'll just distract myself from this anxiety. If we get really curious and we ask ourselves, what could be behind this? Maybe there is a message for me in this. We get some really interesting answers. And what we do discover through that process is that we can feel much more whole than we realized was available to us. We can learn how to calm anxiety anywhere at any time. We do have that ability within us, but often we need to learn some skills to do that, and practice really being with discomfort in our bodies, which is something that most human beings struggle with, especially when it comes to being with our emotions and our feelings. So, this is such a superpower when we learn to sit with our feelings. And there's also a lot that we can help to release and clear. Our subconscious is all the things that we don't know that we don't know. And so as we delve into that, it's amazing. You're so fascinated by the journey as you think, oh my goodness, I had no idea that thing had impacted me so much. Or there are things that we will obviously remember from our past, from our childhood, and then there are things that just blow your mind. It's like, oh wow, that's actually the exact same feeling that I had when I was 3 years old. I'll tell you one, for example, that I discovered myself was when I was about 3-ish years old, I would walk really slowly. And in my family, I remember being called dawdle. They called me dawdle because I was dawdling, walking slowly. And it was kind of this family joke and kind of cute, right? But I never thought anything more of it until I was working through something that was coming up for me as I was experiencing anxiety coming up in relationships. And it was this like deep yearning that I couldn't quite, we're trying to create safety within ourselves. We're trying to feel whole within ourselves. But if I was really honest with myself at that point in my journey, I was like, but there does feel like there's this piece that I can't complete on my own, that I need another person, a man, to come in and complete. And when I delved into the subconscious with this, I had someone guiding me through. I came back to a memory of being 3 and walking really slowly. And as I really dropped into that perspective of myself, I realized that as I was walking that way, I was dragging my feet not because I was lazy, as my family kind of joked about, or that I, just wanted someone to pick me up so I didn't have to walk. It was actually because I was feeling sad and I was missing my dad because he wasn't very present. He was just, the classic hardworking, busy dad all the time who didn't spend a lot of time with the family. I was missing him. I was yearning for him. And I had learned at 3 that if I walked really slowly, maybe dad will come and pick me up, because often he would be the one to pick me up because he was frustrated and just wanted to get us to move along faster. And it was my way of trying to call that experience in and have that closeness, and to really understand that piece of myself and that 3-year-old. Oh, like it just, it melts you into this compassion for yourself that I had no idea about. I just thought, yeah, maybe I was a lazy child that wanted to be picked up all the time. And yeah, it really gives you this whole new perspective. And so there's so much in there that we can discover if we get curious. And it's like piece by piece, we gain our power back. We're discovering more and more of parts of us that we can learn to love and like.
Yes, I love that. There's so many points, right, in our childhoods that like get frozen ultimately inside of us, and then we are replaying them over and over again through our adult relationships. The part of us that's trying to heal it is also desperately trying to protect it. And so we end up in these kind of very often painful romantic situations, and we don't realize that actually we're playing out pain from the past. It's not actually about our partner. It's not actually about the man that we're with, or it's about the fact that we're trying to heal that wounded child, the one that just wanted daddy to come and pick her up, or the one that just wanted to be seen by her parents, or the one who just got told that her emotions were too big and that she needed to be quiet or simmer down, or big girls don't cry. And it's so incredible when we do this deep work into the subconscious. How are we being run? What is running our lives? Who are we being? And then when we're being the version of us that just wanted daddy to pick us up because we missed him, how was that showing up in your adult relationships? Like, do you have an example of how that was showing up?
Yeah, just it was more of a subtle one, that I found that if I was dating someone, or with someone, I I just needed their time, their attention. I didn't feel like it was enough just me on my own. Like I could soothe myself, and I could really feel that sense of wholeness, but on my own. So there was this yearning, this longing for that man to come in and fill that place, or give me that hug, or pick me up, and not literally pick me up, but the 3-year-old, that was the 3-year-old's version. The adult version was, yeah, like having, Prince Charming come in and solve your problems, and make everything okay. And it was in realizing that I gained this peace back, and I was able to see that I could be that presence. I could come pick myself up. Like they say, you hear that said, and I remember hearing it said, you have to be the one to save yourself. But it's experiencing it in those states where you're really in the perspective of a younger you who needed someone to come and save you. Like when I was 3, I couldn't fully soothe myself. Like we need our parents, we need caregivers to come in, and hold us when we're sad, or when we have emotions going on. And so to go back to that, and help that younger part of me mature and grow up, it's just like it put a piece of me to peace. Like there was a piece of me that I now felt could go back to sleep, was content. It was no longer needing to ring through as anxiety, and this sort of empty yearning within me.
Yeah, I love that. I have a similar story again when I was 3 actually, but I was with my nan and my sister who's a baby in a pram, and my nan's dog. And me and my nan's dog basically walked to the park on our own, which was about a 10-minute, no, probably a 5-minute walk. But bearing in mind I was 3.5, so it's a pretty long walk for a 3.5-year-old on her own. But when I got to the park, I obviously realized my nan wasn't here. I didn't know anyone. I didn't really know what to do. And then before I knew it, I had 2 men appear. One I recognized, who was my nan's next door neighbor, but the other one I didn't know who he was. And they both picked me up, or the one I didn't know picked me up. And we got into, and he put me in the car and put his hand over my mouth because I was screaming. And the dog was really barking in the background. And obviously, this was very traumatic for a 3.5-year-old girl who doesn't know what was happening. And when I got back to my nan's house, my nan was obviously completely freaked out that her granddaughter had just gone missing. And she told me off when I got home. So there was this moment, that little girl, that 3.5-year-old, made this decision that there's no space for her emotions. There's no space for what's actually going on for her. She needs to shut it down because everybody else's emotions are more important. I don't matter. And I found that story, I don't matter, there was lots of examples of that in my childhood as well, just from my parents being busy. Like they were doing the best that they knew how, but me as the 3-year-old was experiencing it as, oh, I must not matter then if you are so busy. And I remember that being the predominant experience for me in my marriage and in all of my previous relationships when I finally started to unpack it, and how I would just suppress everything, not share what I needed, not share what I wanted, not share how I felt. I mean, I didn't know how I felt because I was completely numb. But I think like one of the things that I know you really talk about a lot, which I think is so important and so interesting, that actually so much of this really comes from our childhood, is not being able to ask for what we need or what we want in our relationships, and that stemming from actually not knowing who we are deep down. Because, and I believe, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, is that who we are has obviously been shaped by our childhoods, by all these moments, by these frozen moments in time, by the way that we've developed protective personality parts, or we've adapted to become the high achiever or the good girl. But actually we don't know who we are, so we can't ask for what we want or need. And I really believe that is a huge root of betrayal in relationships. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so this is like it in terms of the way that played out for me. There was, because I always had this sense that my father was unavailable to me, I adapted to that unavailable experience by being okay with that. This is just how it is. And it took me, these are the things we don't know that we need. So I was playing the cool girl for a long time, being totally okay with inconsistent behavior, or someone who, I would hear from for 3 days in a row and then not hear for 3 days, and just be okay, like, even though my nervous system was starting to get edgy and like, what's going on and why haven't I heard from them? I would tell myself that was a me problem and not necessarily about that behavior in that situation. And what I eventually learned, and this took a long time, like really long time, to be so honest with myself, is that I need someone who is consistently available to me. And it was kind of hard to admit that. But and I even felt uncomfortable when I finally got that. Like, my partner now, he's so available to me, even though he's very busy and he works really hard. He will call me 2, 3, 4 times throughout the workday. And it's at the point where, at the beginning, I would almost be kind of frustrated with it, or a little bit like, is this a bit much? There was still that part of me that was so used to that unavailable, inconsistent behavior that I kind of pushed it away a bit, but I knew better. Like, my conscious self welcomed it and was like, no, no, this is good. This is good. And what I realized over time is the benefit of that for my nervous system, that I'd finally selected a partner who was consistently available to me, was that never do I have the thoughts of, where is he? Is he thinking of me? I wonder what's going on, or does he still love me? Like, those are the things that creep in when you haven't heard from someone for an entire day or two and you don't know why. I think it's different, obviously, within reason, if they literally tell you, hey, I'm going to be out of communication for the entire day. But yeah, that especially for me was really crucial, and these are the things that we have to know ourselves well enough to even know that we need them and to ask for them. Like, another big one would be just like permission to feel my feelings. Again, for a long time in my life, I thought I was too sensitive and that I felt too much. And it's been a process of like really owning that. And even if my partner doesn't feel fully comfortable with all of those feelings, I know myself, and I know that my feelings are valid and needed, and it's healthy to express them. And so I really own that, and I can just ask for what I need in those moments. Like, if I just need you to let me feel this, and just, you can be here, you don't have to be here, I can hold myself through this, it's all good. And so these are some beautiful ways that we can navigate those moments when we do know ourselves.
Yes. Oh my gosh. And it's so wild because this was my experience too, was when I first after I'd separated from my ex-husband and I was dating again for about must have been about a year before, just under a year before I met Adam. And I had obviously, well, not obviously, but I had experienced a lot of the old kind of frequency of the unavailability of people not messaging back, that kind of fear bubbling up in my chest, like what's happening. And I just had this real like moment of clarity again, because I finally felt like I understood myself at a deeper level. I've been doing a lot of work on myself for a long time at that point. And I just had this moment of clarity of realizing I need a partner who wants to be in contact with me throughout the day. Like, some people don't. I do. And it doesn't need to be backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards, all like every moment of the day. But I need to feel that stability. I need to know that this man like is going to pick up the phone and call me if he wants to. That he's going to message me and he's not going to play some game, or that he's not going to, like delay and replying to me because I took 2 hours to reply to him. Like, I just needed a man who was just there, that was going to claim me and was going to show up for me. And I, like you, had this like real battle because I was the cool girl too. I don't need anyone. I don't need anything. I'm fine. Like, you do you. I had this real battle of like admitting that to myself. Like, shit, like I actually really do like need somebody to be there for me. And I didn't have that. I didn't have that in any of my previous relationships because I never knew I needed it. And I never would have asked for it because I didn't know I needed it. And so previously it would have been a case of like not even recognizing. I remember there was one time where I'd gone away for work and I was sending my ex-husband these messages, and I never blame my ex-husband. We have a very good relationship, but that like even now we very respectful of each other. But there was a moment where I remember I'd gone away on a shoot and I was in like Finland or something, and I was taking these photos of the beautiful scenery and I was sending them to him, and he looked at them and he just didn't reply to me for, I don't think I got a reply that day. Maybe I got a reply the next day. And that was just normal. But I
Mm.
remember there being a disappointment in me, like checking to see if he'd read the message, and but I just swallowed it. I just swallowed it down. Like I didn't say anything. I didn't bring it up with him. I just thought, well, that's just what I have to, that's just who he is and this is who I am. And so it's like, but it's those almost like micro moments of swallowing our truth or not asking for what we need, which build up, I believe, and they build up and they build up and they build up to a point where that self abandonment, because we don't really know who we are, leads to us potentially looking outside of a relationship and finding ourselves in an explosive situation, which is almost blowing our lives up.
Yes, and I have a story of that I have never publicly shared for no particular reason as to it's just never really come up. I'm a pretty open book when it comes to a lot of things, and and it's like I've been thinking, like, as we've been talking, like what was the need that wasn't met for me fully in the relationship where I did experience being the one who cheated. And that was that initial partner who was the safe one after my parents' divorce. We were together for a number of years, and honestly, I think it was just so many things within me that were calling for growth that I didn't even know about, that just kind of catapulted me beyond that situation. I outgrew it in some ways, but I was still scared, right? I liked my safe cocoon. I liked my place where I wasn't being challenged, where I didn't have to go out into the scary dating world and potentially face rejection and all of those other things that go on out there. And it took a trip to Bali with a girlfriend. My grandmother had just passed away, and it was my birthday that week, and we just spontaneously booked this trip. And all of a sudden, my life went on a totally different trajectory. In fact, Bali is a place where I have had several life changing, life altering moments. That was where my family was on a holiday in Bali when my dad actually announced that he was leaving my mum. And a few years earlier. And then several years later, there I was again. And I think it was the first time I'd been back to Bali. And I was there with my friend and not thinking about not being with my partner at all. I was we're in it together. We were living together. And something got into me, and I can't quite explain what it was, but there was just this calling within me to experience an adventure. And that's how I would describe it. I met this man, and I remember this one moment outside a nightclub where he invited me to go for a ride on his scooter, and I think he had puppies at his villa, and he was like, I'll show you the puppies. And it was just this moment of, are you going to say yes or are you going to say no? And I could not stop myself saying yes. I just had too much in me that wanted to live, that wanted to say yes to life, that was yearning for, at that time, I would have thought it was freedom. But I honestly, looking at my life now, the amount of growth I had to do and learning through relationships subsequently from that moment, it was a calling to grow. You got way more to experience, way many more flavors of life to go through, and wounds to be poked and triggered as well, so that I could heal them. And so I ended up, going home with him and spent a night with him. I didn't sleep with him, but it definitely, if a fly had been on the wall and that was roles reversed, I would have been very upset at that situation if that was my boyfriend. And so it definitely crossed a line. And I came home from that just completely like, who am I now? Am I like my dad who had these affairs? And it was really interesting sitting in that perspective of being the one who was, I felt what it was like to be so absorbed in the moment I was in that I wasn't thinking about my partner at home. I was just thinking about what was in front of me. And so it was very clear to me that you can absolutely love and care for someone and also make that choice. I could see how that worked. And that was very interesting and quite healing for me to have that, because I always wondered with my dad, how could you do this and love us and have our family? So it started to, from that perspective, was very interesting. But yeah, when I got home from that, I was just, it was a real wake up call for me. And I realized, like, if I had that in me, that really says something. And it took a few weeks of me sort of processing it, but things were definitely different after that. And I ended up choosing to leave the relationship because I didn't want to just ignore that. It was too big of a thing, especially coming from what I'd come from, where I would so condemn that at that time in my life. I was so anti anyone that would cheat because of what my dad had done. So there I was. So interesting, isn't it? How life gives us these experiences. And this is why I would never judge anyone, right? There's always, like, if we just ask a few more questions, I can't say I wouldn't judge anyone. I mean, I'm a human, but but we can always understand and really get to, like, what is that deeper part. And there was just this little girl in me that was still wanting someone to come and save her. And my partner had been too safe to save me. Ultimately, it had to be me, but I didn't know that yet. So I was still going after, I need that unavailable one to come and save me. And so, yeah, he was very much a catalyst, the man that I met in Bali, and nothing further happened there. But it led to a totally different trajectory for me, and lots of events that ensued from there. But it just mostly experiences where I got to learn so much more about myself.
Wow. I'm just obsessed, because I actually truly believe that betrayal for anyone, for both sides of the coin, the person that has been cheated on and the person that's cheated, is a portal. Like, if we really allow it to be, because it's almost like, as you said, the self-doubt, the questioning, like, who am I? I've got this in me. Like, how can I hurt somebody that I loved? And I completely agree with you. You can absolutely love someone and cheat on them. Like, cheating on somebody has nothing to do with love. It has nothing to do with love. And I don't care how many internet trolls want to tell me otherwise. It does not. And I think that the mistake that we make, because there is so much shame in society and all the religious conditioning that we have around affairs, etc., and the judgment of others, is that we tend to want to bury it, like push it under the carpet, not want to talk about it, not want to have to even confront it in ourselves. Like, I tried to bury it for 2 years. I tried to ignore it. I tried to let it go. I tried to forget about it because I didn't want to have to face it. But actually, when I did face it, I faced it after a year, but I told him after 2 years. But after I started to face myself after a year, and I started to see, oh my God, like, this is a pattern that I have been in quite a few of my relationships. And that was really a horrifying thing to see. But I was also so terrified of some of my closest friends knowing this about me, because I was so afraid of being rejected or ostracized or, like, punished even more than I was already punishing myself. But actually, the invitation, I really believe, is exactly what you said, Georgie, and exactly my experience too, which is, if you can lean in and find the support with the right person to help you heal. And I don't just mean therapy. Like, we can, like, just talking therapy is wonderful. I still have therapy. I saw my therapist this morning. I love her. But if you really want to get to the root of what it is that's stopping you from being able to speak your truth in relationships and ask for what you need, we need to get into the subconscious. Like, you can talk to someone's conscious mind and tell them to ask for what they need a gazillion times over, and it's not going to happen. But this is an opportunity now for everybody that's listening and everybody that's been through this to actually completely transform your life. And that doesn't mean that everything on the outside of your life has to die. Just because my marriage ended and Georgie's relationship ended doesn't mean that your relationship has to end too. There are a lot of couples that can actually use this moment as a deeply healing and transformational point for both of them, if they're willing to really look at their parts to play. But yeah, like, if nothing else, use both mine and Georgie's story to see, like, don't bury it. Like, don't push it under the carpet, because you're actually doing yourself an injustice. If you're listening to this and thinking, that's me, I cheated and I hate myself for it, you don't have to carry that weight alone. The healed heart is where you finally stop spiraling and start healing. 6 months with women who get it, no judgment, no pretending, just the space to feel what's been buried, to understand the root of why it happened, and to come back to the woman you were born to be. We start on October the 9th. There are only 9 spots left. Book your free call now. The link is in the show notes. Don't wait. This is your chance to come home to yourself. Because I'm sure if I ask Georgie now, like, how does life feel being Georgie in 2025 versus the version of Georgie that cheated? Where's the difference? Where are you standing now?
It's huge, and I'm thinking, even because I never told that ex-boyfriend about that moment, because I think I came to the conclusion that I was probably going to break up with him, but because we were living together and things like that, it wasn't like an instant thing. And it was also such a shock in many ways to me. Like, I was just as shocked and surprised that suddenly the relationship was ending. But I never told him because I so remember the shame and the guilt. Like, I really do remember feeling all of that and feeling worried. Like, what are my friends going to think? Who can I even talk to about this? Feeling so alone in it in so many ways. And I decided that he didn't need to know, because I'd already decided I was going to end the relationship. And it was just like an extra thing that he didn't need to hear. And here we are. It's been 10 years, so I feel like I can tell the story now. And I don't know if he will ever hear this. But it's I think that, the time we've all moved on, and it's okay, and it wouldn't sting or hurt. But that was the decision I made. But had circumstances been different, and had, like, I remember at the time thinking, I'm just too young right now to be in such a serious relationship. There was a degree of that too. And had we been a little bit older, like, maybe we would have worked through something like that. But I don't know. I mean, it's not even worth kind of going there, is it? Like, life just unfolds as it's meant to. And I really believe the journey is so perfect. So when you say, where am I, what's the difference between Georgie now? Georgie then just had so much learning to do around seeing herself. And the deepest thing that I couldn't see for so many years was how unavailable I was to myself. So I was calling in or yearning for these romantic dalliances with unavailable men who felt like such an adventure. And yet there was a part of me that was so, so deeply afraid of revealing my most vulnerable, intimate self. And that's why I kept choosing those kind of partners, because they were the ones that I was always going to be at arm's length. And so I would never have to reveal my deepest heart, my deepest truth, my most tender wounds, because they could never get really that close. There was always this little secret world that I had. And it's so beautiful to have sort of unlocked that to a place where now in my relationship, there's not really a corner of my heart that I wouldn't, expose out there, because even if it did get a little hurt, we can say, I mean, we're all in human relationships if we are partnered, and we don't always know how to say the right thing or hold those tender parts of our partners, or they don't for us. But I can hold that part of me. So even if it doesn't get held, and there's this like, rejection or, am I too much kind of moment, I can always come in as my own loving parent, as the parent that I needed, and tend to that part. So yes, there's a very big difference in this Georgie now. And I just look back at the whole, the years of my journey through love and relationships with such fondness at times. And there's still moments where I'm like, oh gosh, I can't believe I went through that. But it was an adventure. I'm very happy to have gone through it and be here.
Yeah, I think thank you so much for sharing that. And thank you so much for telling that story, that we got your exclusive here on the Do for Love podcast. But I
Only
feel
here.
that it is, only here. This is the only safe space for the affair stories. Come on over, everybody. But I feel that, I'm the same. Like, I people who are in my world now can't really fathom the idea that I don't carry any shame, any guilt anymore about the past. And one of the biggest parts of that is because I know that without what I had been through, I wouldn't be here today. And the same as you, in a relationship where I feel that I'm willing to show all of me now. And I am willing to show up in vulnerable ways that I wouldn't have even dreamt of, 10 years ago. Like, not, I wouldn't even know how. And I'm still learning. Like, I'm still learning to let him hold me more. I'm still learning to let him be the one that holds me when I cry, and to show him my inner experiences without projecting on him. And it's constantly a learning exercise, right? We're never
Mm.
complete. But I am so grateful for the journey and where it's taken me, and for me to be able to, just as you say, have enough self holding and self awareness that if I was to be rejected, in inverted commas, or laughed at, or told no, that I can hold it. Like, I can hold that. Like, out, it might hurt a bit, but I can also hold it. And that's power. Like, that's power, really and truly. And that's freedom, actually, because without those things, we're just going through life pretending that we're someone that we're not only to somebody else, but also to ourselves.
Mm.
And that level of disconnection, there's different reasons people cheat, but I do see this time and time again, that disconnection from self is mirrored by, in our relationships, with disconnection from other. And then we try, or there is a part of us that is seeking that aliveness, or seeking like that love or that affection or something that we are never going to ask for in our relationship because we're so terrified of doing it. And so we do, just like you described so perfectly, Georgie. Like, there's a part of us that just took over. It just takes over. And it's like our central nervous system is just like, we've got to go over here because this is where aliveness is. This is where I'm going to
Mm.
be alive if I do this. And it has no moral compass, that part of us. It doesn't think, oh, well, or if I do that, then probably going to really upset someone. It might blow my whole life up. It's just like, if you are not connected to yourself and therefore other people, you are going to die. So we have to press the alarm bell. Like, something has to happen. And
Mm.
that's what I believe affairs are. And it's quite an out there thing to say, because so many people just think that it's like a moral something that's morally, dubious, and people that cheat are bad. And I honestly thought that. I actually thought that very deeply. Like, I was like, how can anyone cheat on anyone? They're disgusting. I hadn't even looked at the fact that I'd cheated on all my boyfriends. I was like, oh my God, like, I was holier than thou, but I'd snogged, so and so,
Mm.
and I'd done that with so and so. So yeah, it's
Even
incredible. And
those
and I really
moments,
appreciate you.
sorry to interrupt there, but even those moments of like yearning, like I've had plenty of times in previous relationships, like fantasizing about someone else or having a crush on someone else in a relationship. So not necessarily taking the action, but again, it's the same road that you're traveling down. It really is one of those things that we can find ourselves on so easily, and yet at the same time have this other part of us that's like, you can't possibly do that, you're a terrible, like those people are terrible that do this, and yet we all have it within ourselves, like we're all the flavors. But I love how you described that it literally feels like you're going to die if you don't do it. That's how powerful that yearning can be.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And I think that the more of us that um, understand that, and understand that the yearning and the impulse to act like that is, it's almost a part of us it's trying to wake us up. Like, it's like, wake the fuck up. Just stop what you're doing. Like, this isn't working. Something over here isn't working. And it's I remember, even at the end of my marriage, I was still convinced I was in a really good marriage. And it was only through working with my coach and my therapist and millions of others, of healers and energy healers and breathwork facilitators and all of the things that I worked with after the end of my marriage. But I started to see that, I loved him, he loved me. There's no doubt in that. He was a kind man, but there was no depth of connection in our relationship, no depth of intimacy in our relationship. And that was a co-creation. That's no one person's fault. That was a co-creation. But it took me quite a long time to actually really see that and to be able to admit that too, because I was so caught up in the story that I was the bad person. Was the one that had completely broken down something that was actually really good. And when I look back, I'm like, I could have stayed in that marriage for the rest of my life. We could have easily just sailed along in this state of kind of pseudo connection, but I can see now that's not what was meant for my life. What was meant for my life was to completely blow up the internet by saying that affairs aren't just a moral failure.
Oh, but it's so like we all have all the colors within us. Like if you're going to judge someone, if we judge, I always find this fascinating. Like if you're going to judge murderers, let's get really edgy here. Like where is the murderer in you? Because as human beings, we all have all the different characters and flavors within us. And I don't mean that you're literally going to go out and murder someone, but maybe you've had a moment where you've been so angry that you've thought, you know what, if something happened to that person, I wouldn't be sad. Like something like that. Like that could be that little tiny piece of that inner murderer in you that you would so readily judge in someone else. It's endlessly fascinating. And one thing, Alex, that I only realized later, it was just before I met my current partner, was as much as there was this part of me that was yearning for a partner, wanted a relationship, there was also this sneaky little part of me that didn't want a relationship because it's so exciting being single. Because when you're single, it feels like the world is just open and any future possibility could come your way. Like that is a very exciting feeling of, I don't know, like who am I going to end up with and where is my life story going to go? And as soon as you meet someone and you're in that relationship, it felt, for me at least, like the future would close in. Like now my story's been written. Oh, I'm with this person and we're going to have to live here because that's where they live, and or whatever, the circumstances are. And that's how the story's going to go. And there was always this part of me that would kind of push that away because I didn't want to just know how the story was going to go. And this is definitely part of the same piece of what made me say yes to that man in Bali. It was this, I want a different adventure. Like, can we have a different story, please? And it took me realizing at a deep subconscious level, I couldn't just realize it intellectually, that being in a relationship long term with someone and committing to someone, there was actually a much greater adventure that could unfold in that than I had ever realized, because we had the adventure of knowing more and more of myself, knowing through the mirror of that other person, going through the ups and downs of life, riding through years of challenges together and learning intimately about one another. That suddenly appealed to me as the adventure that I wanted to go on, the ultimate adventure, far better than just this single life of, I don't know where I'm going to end up. It was like, yeah, I still don't know where I'm going to end up with my current partner. Like it is an unfolding adventure, even though logically there are some pieces that I could tell the story of where it's going to go. There's very much like, how are we going to grow together over the next, few decades? Like what would that look like? I don't know. Let's see. And it's so exciting.
It really is. And I absolutely adore that for you, Georgie. Honestly, thank you so much. Honestly, this conversation, I hope that everybody listening has taken so much from this, if nothing else, just to know that you're not alone and it's not just me. There's Georgie as well that had been through this experience, and all of the ways in which we can find ourselves looking outside of a relationship when we don't believe that we ever would. Thank you for listening to the Deeper Love podcast. If today's episode spoke to you, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one. And if you're ready to go deeper, you'll find all the ways to work with me in the show notes. Until next time.